And we are coming to the next part, which is composed of two things. One is to present the results of these 11 work groups. And I'm happy to present Nadia Balgobin because she's doing that already, I think, the third time during conferences, fourth time even, or four. So it's different and difficult to integrate all the handwritten feedback within this short time. And she just jumped in with the last minute feedbacks, and it's a presentation which of course will be then edited and worked on it. It's just the first, so thank you so much for this work.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, time is running against us, so I'll try to be concise, but at least giving you the key messages, which is indeed quite a challenge for me. So just to get back, since this has been presented after, as you've seen, there has been a change in the program. This was initially before this high-level panel discussion, then it has decided it will come after. So most of the thing has been said, but still I would like to give you a few feedback on what has been discussed when we started already yesterday. So we heard a lot about how ethics, politics, and environment and economic issues are becoming relevant to India, that there is a sense of urgency to address inequality by corporations. And as Mr. Shubulal has always said, that there is the importance to combine profit and progress, and this is the way forward. We need to do the right thing right, as Intel was expressing to us yesterday. We see that in all these companies there's importance and emphasis put on code of conduct. These remain critical for big corporations. Growth has to be inclusive, but we need also to take into consideration the distribution of of wealth. We need to create a level playing field that addresses the causes of minority. Technology can play a role to reach out to the poorest. Access to healthcare is still unfair around the world, as this has been expressed by Minister Leisinger. The UN report on equality highlights that it is an intra-country phenomenon in terms of inequality. We heard also that globalization has not contributed in the right way as would have expected. It has mostly contributed to perpetuating and bridging inequality. The current economic system, this has been highlighted more than once by Judge Mervyn King, it has failed. So we need to look at the more inclusive and integrated system approach. Need for a new business model. Business leaders tend to live in silos, lack exposure to the reality of inequality and poverty. At the same time, if we want to understand inequality, we need to revisit our history. This has been expressed by India quite a lot of time during the past 2 days. We need also to distinguish equality versus fairness, because the one seems to be what we are trying to do here. It is in fact the starting point, but fairness should serve as a process. Ethics should be addressed from a informative and transformative angle, as this has been highlighted by a friend from Tanzania. Imbalanced power of negotiation is a concern for African governments, as has been expressed by Francophone countries, that we need to build capacity of government leaders to have a higher power of negotiations with companies. Equality and inequality have different priorities depending on the country where we are. So this has been what we've been heard for the first morning yesterday, and now let's go back to the respective workshops that have enabled each of you to look at your respective concerns. On gender equality, it seems that for India, a change in the India policy for women can really make a difference, and we would certainly improve the actual ranking of India on this index, which is 121 as far as I recall. The fast-growing economy in China has brought problems to women in terms of equality, and some 8 fears have been identified. I want to highlight them here. When women are included, there is a multiplying effect. So women, when they are economically active, they can play, they can make a change, they can change the world. Gender equality taken up by Global Compact, but unluckily has not been looked at the national and local level. The Global Compact has come up with women empowerment principle for business that we need to be looked at more in details. Promotion of women business through training is important if we want to provide confidence to women to move up. Economic solidarity needs to come into play, and business can play a role. Businesses themselves need to implement policies related to gender equality so that it can bring really benefits to this group. Civil society and the media are important as well because they can influence the way women are perceived in the society. Women should have their own organization and activities, but they should take also steps to create the world. Role of markets and globalization for equality. It was a bit of a perspective of the BRICS versus Africa. So BRICS formation was definitely important for Africa. Africa-China relationship has an overall very positive impact on creating new markets. A lot of infrastructure developments has been set up in Africa. Africa remains the biggest exporter for Russia in the field of onion, for instance. And there's a lot of doctors who are beneficial from training from Russia. So Chinese with Africa has been a bit in a two-steps process. There has been this first process of moving due to economic reasons. And the first one, was much more for domestic politics reason why China was moving to Africa. But now we are much more for economic reason that China is getting interested in Africa. So this group recommends that China looks into inclusive participation of all stakeholders to avoid falling in the same trap as others, meaning what the other let's say the Western has, where the Western have fallen short in terms of colonization and what the degradation that has left behind. India has long-term relationship with Africa, with 4 generations that has been settled up there. India remains the largest partners in Africa in 4 corners of the continent. It is important to overcome attitudes of superiority and foster on partnership to improve local markets. A new framework of partnership focused on Africa may be required. Governance, accountability, transparency, recruitment process driven are key to support equality. Africa has to find its own ways and define its own laws and own governance rules. So, moving to the next workshop on sharing economy, global economy needs responsible management. Inequality has numerous dimensions and excludes and marginalizes rightful access to resources, to justice, equality, and dignity of life. So we need a paradigm shift from neoliberalism to which has bring an unsustainable growth. So need for also redefining corporate social responsibilities. The process of creating sustainable alternative is a long-term endeavor. Victims also need to support the process and be part of it. Sharing economy has different meaning in the North and the South. In the North, it means sustainability, and in the South, it means addressing poverty. So the language has changed from philanthropy to socio-economic perspective. So new kind of service delivery gaps are being delivered through social entrepreneurship. There's a need to look at the macro, meso, and micro context also in the context of sharing economy. If we don't take the right step now, we, other privileged, sacrifice will come that we will have to face. So systemic thinking is required, but we still need to think big, act small, and now. So SMEs in China enjoy strong government policy. They represent a potential for innovation. So that was for sharing economy. Transparency in religious organizations. Religious institutions have a role to play in addressing corruption. Ways can be through court, advocacy, engaged dialogue, conduct, sensitization, and compliance. All organizations should be encouraged to be transparent, to disclose land holding and make public. Transformation of Christian education is important. Theology of sharing instead of fighting. Develop ethics within Christian organization. Recommendations are on leadership, role of power of lay people, concrete measures regarding compliance. Build an online platform and a database. Share other practice for mutual learning. Equal access to natural resources. The concern has been that top leaders of company are linked with government leaders. So it's very difficult. Behind it we can imagine a lot of things. Corruption, submissiveness, and other things. South-South cooperation strategy need to be built on a mutual benefit and respect. China government is doing a lot to address environmental issues with respect to natural resources and are providing huge funds for that. This needs to be recognized as an effort that China is doing. And pollution law is on the way, and carbon rating is being introduced. We are caught when we talk about natural resources between the political boundaries. We say this is our land, but we have also to realize that maybe natural resources have no boundary because we have one planet and it belongs to us all. So there's a need to look at circular economy to make sure that we don't deplete the planet anymore. So we need to move from this industrial growth to ecological culture. We need to start giving community a voice so that they can also express themselves in terms of concern when they are being displaced, for instance. There has been suggestion to undertake mobilization for environment and ethical business leaders as a process to get maybe more attention on how to address natural resources depletion. Education, equality and inequality are not currently addressed by business school. Responsible leaders can be created in institutions that are not only economic but also social, and in which all faculties are involved. There's a need to see students internalize what they have learned so that they can use the learning effectively in their lives and careers. This includes using experiential learning in social projects. Spirituality for sustainability. There's various religions, and each of them has an idea of the essential principles of equality of human beings. Diversity is also discussed by religious traditions, and it is an important principle. An agreement on a common human characteristic that leads to an acceptable economic equality is greed, that we need to recognize that greed is a concern. Nobody is preaching economic equality, but rather a sense of responsibility and sustainability, community, and harmony. Our values of community and sustainability also are breached and impossible at a certain level of equality. The Globalization principle have been looked at, and there has been suggested that there should be a final way, a common ground to bridge between cultures, religions, and stakeholders. Maybe this has to be taken on board by Theodor Reiner. The last principle, the seventh one, should be reformulated as a principle, not just a comment. Ethical principles of equality and inequality. Ethics is a continual process in which human being and institution participates. The ideal remains the ideal, and they are often realized imperfectly. The ideal of realization of justice should be accompanied by the ideals implemented with care and compassion. Equality is an attitude of respect. There's a moral responsibility to pursue equality. All must take this and make the effort. There's a need for solidarity, temperance, and courage. The importance, education can play an important role with this respect. So there should be a non-discriminatory approach where corporate business society take the lead. Should be a participatory approach as well to decision making. It is not easy to talk about inequality, but it is easier to build a bridge and agree on equality. Again, equality is a process, something to practice. We have to create an environment of justice and of equality. SMEs, sustainable leadership across continents, very hot topics, very lively. China is doing quite a lot to support SMEs, particularly in the high-tech area. Indonesia churches are doing some work also with SMEs to at least raise the concern on ethics. It is thought that it is very important that values must come from within and from the leaders. They are the ones who set the tone for their organization. Their values must be visible and accessible to stakeholders, so it needs to be communicated. Social entrepreneurship is looking at added value job, no more slavery. Preserving or enhancing the environment is addressed by SMEs who are in the export market. But sometimes there is this big gap between those who are involved in the domestic markets and those that are involved in the export markets. So we need to move from sustainability to responsible leaders. We should introduce sustainability measures for SMEs, make it simple, but at least something that they can manage. The challenge is sustainability, not charity, neither philanthropy. Concept of justopreneurs related to justice and sustained prowess have been articulated as new approach to be looked at. Social media for participation, the LARS, and I'm finished. Development goals are not understood, and institutions like consumer associations are needed for social justice. Traditional media has commercial interest, and public good is only incidental versus social media, which gives freedom to expression of opinion. There's a need for infrastructure building to enhance accessibility and legal framework through regulation. It is a matter of transparency versus access to information. Impact of social media on media is direct and on society is indirect. Generic principles of citizen journalism are universal accuracy, reliability, fairness. Social media is ruthless and ruleless, doesn't need physical office space. Definition of social media as an ICT tool for many interaction, there's a need to define this, I guess. Need a process to make users social media literate. There's an issue of identity here, real versus virtual. The recommendations are to support accessibility and affordability of social media as one of the greatest equalizers in today's society. Increase accessibility and affordability of social media to marginalized or excluded groups like the disabled and illiterate. The recommendation to Globalization is to develop ethics of social media, addressing especially responsibility of users, of owner, and of regulations of social media. To strengthen mechanism of community empowerment and of regulatory and self-regulatory responsible use of social media. There has been one workshop that has been, due to time, that we've not been able to capture here, but I just would like to give you in 4 points. It's related to innovation ethics, where there is a need to define what is ethical innovation. There's legal issues that will need to be addressed with emerging technologies. Innovation ethics can overcome inequality and justice. Through the example and the project that Globalization has with the Innovation Law Library, it is demonstrating that it is possible to reach out to the poorest in a simple way today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you very much, Nadia, for this excellent work. And